Une soirée chez Innocente dans le Tub Show avec ma grand-mère et ses demoiselles Jacques. Tout ce que je pensais que j'ai compris sur les frontières chevriles, la confiance et moi ma âme. La brise d'une soirée s'est crue à caresse ma peau pendant que je reste dans le jardin, la drift dans la contemplation, la murmure douce du tub chaud dans la proximité, ça craint qu'il y ait une ambiance calme au-delà de la stilité péculière de la maison. Gâche naturellement, l'atmosphère serait vivante avec de l'énergie, en particulier quand Diana, ma grand-mère, hostait l'une de ses réunions caclabres. Mais ce soir, c'était seulement moi, déchirant un verre de vin que j'ai discrètement pris du rêche frigo créature. Je m'appelle Miles, j'ai 22 ans, j'ai récemment gradué et je vis actuellement la maison pendant que je navigue mes prochaines tapers. Il y a des pertes, cet arrangement, comme des soirées tranquilles comme celle-ci, ou à monsieur. Ah non, ich hab einem, ou passen. J'y croyais à. L'escalade douce du portail a interrompu mon rêve du jour. J'ai regardé Diana s'immerger, accompagnée et par quelques-unes de ses amies, tous en partageant des sourires douces, des boissons en main, radiant un sentiment de joie inévitable. Il n'achetait pas longtemps avant qu'elles se sont rendues conscientes de mon propre sens. Ah, Miles, qu'est-ce qui vous a maintenu ici, tout seul? Ah. Diana s'est appelée Hachi, son voix laque et avec une joie de jouer familiale qui avait devenu une praxe sens confortable au cours des années. J'ai mergent, emprisonnant dans un instant d'incertitude, en me demandant comment répondre. La compagnie a été la dernière chose que j'ai anticipée. Ah, ça n'en a pas une. Particulièrement celle-ci. Au moment où un et le secrétaire en rapproche, j'ai observé que chacun d'entre eux avait un pantalon en bikini. En dessous de leur vêtements fluide, il était évident qu'ils voulaient s'indulger dans la chaleur du tubo chaud. Aubrey, l'une des amies de Diana, m'a offert un sourire chaleureux. Ah, vraiment, vous devriez nous rejoindre. Ah, à propos, c'est son voix joyeuse et invitante. Avant que je puisse dire un mot, Diana s'est apparue, mon catanchine délicatement tirant le verre de vin de mon poignet. Ses yeux ont brillé avec de la misre joyeuse, comme elle a demandé. Ah, viens, ne sois pas timide, l'eau est parfaite. Ah, l'intensité de leurs yeux m'a l'évoque fortement, ce qui m'a rendu presque impossible d'exprimer un refus. Après un instant de contemplation, je me suis emprisonné. Puis en pleurant et en levant les pieds, comme Aubrey et l'autre compagnie de Diana, Tessa, dont j'ai l'impression de rigoler, se sont unis en stouffant leurs vêtements et en passant dans l'air. Leur rire a dans l'air le soir, une mélodie infectieuse et invitante. J'ai dormi un instant sur le précipice, la sensation de dormir en tant qu'extraterrestre, une sensation que Diana m'avait apportée. Ah, l'eau est parfaite, ah, a-t-elle dit, avec un sourire amusant accompagnant ses mots. Incapable de rock sister plus longuement, je suis entré dans le bain chaud et l'eau chaleureuse m'enveloppe, qu'est dans un accueil soufflant. Lorsque le poids de l'ignorance et de l'attention sort au stirrend, j'ai trouvé mon lieu et j'ai tenu la sens de Diana au contact de moi. Ah, Roche Flash Chi, ah, a-t-elle dit, avec une voix douce, encourageante et chaleureuse. Ah, nous sommes tous ici pour avoir un bon moment. Ah, Diana m'a passé un autre verre de vin, ses doigts s'éloignant contre le mien pendant plus de temps que nécessaire. Je ne pouvais pas dire si c'était de la chaleur de l'eau, les effets de l'alcool ou l'accompagnement délicieux, mais un sens d'aise a commencé de s'éloigner de moi. La conversation s'éloignait sans effort, ponctuée par des rires et des éclats amusants, mais sous la surface, un sous-current de tension qui éloignait de ma conscience. À chaque fois, je l'observais. Lorsque les minutes s'éloignaient, j'ai senti leur gaz sur moi, une expression que je n'ai pas pu interpréter. C'est alors que j'ai remarqué que Diana s'approchait. Quand elle a parlé, son dos s'éloignait doucement contre le mien et sa main se retrouvait de temps en temps sur mon bras. Pendant ce moment, j'ai essayé de maintenir un air de nonchalance, mais le rapide tapotement de mon cœur a trahi mon facade de calme. Aubrey et Tessa nous ont observés, aux times, leur sourire portant un d'eux suffit qui m'ont convaincu d'agir, mais je suis resté sans motion, incertaine de la direction que cela allait prendre. L'atmosphère a changé, charge d'une énergie que je n'ai pas pu nommer. Diana s'éloignait doucement, son praque sans se devenant plus intense, même si aucun d'entre nous n'en parlait. Une course calmement emprisonnante quand j'ai vu Aubrey et Tessa s'approcher de plus proche, leurs yeux entourant d'une connexion et je dit. Aubrey a souri, ses lèvres courant d'une manière qui a envoyé un flacon haut dans mon ventre. Les machos, l'ange de l'eau chaude, le vin, toi et leur proximité a rendu tout merveilleux. Diana a whisperé quelque chose que je n'avais pas prêche vous, ce qui m'a stonné. Et je n'étais pas sûr de comment répondre. Diana s'est approchée. Son voix s'éloignait, comme si elle avait dit quelque chose qui n'était jamais audible. Aubrey et Tessa ont partagé des sourires douces. Avec chaque seconde qui s'éloignait, j'ai senti l'escalade de la tension, comme si le monde extérieur venait d'un repos. Diana's hand trailed lightly down my arm, and the room's atmosphere seemed to thicken. It was clear something was shifting, though no one said it aloud. Aubrey and Tessa seemed to share an understanding with Diana, their laughter soft and inviting. I couldn't think straight as Diana's next whisper hung in the air. The water swirled around us, warm and inviting, but the emotion building inside was more intense than anything physical. Diana leaned in with a playful expression. Aubrey and Tessa were also close now, their presence surrounding me. I turned and the moment felt heavy but unclear. Something was changing, but I didn't know how far it would go. I lingered there as the night deepened, unsure of how to interpret the electric current running beneath each moment. Aubrey leaned in close, her eyes searching mine as the moment grew heavier with unspoken energy. I didn't move. My thoughts were loud, colliding with the stillness of the air around us. Tessa's fingers brushed lightly down my arm, a soft gesture that added to the mounting confusion within me. "You deserve this," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine with a question. My voice caught in my throat. I couldn't find the words to respond. All I could do was nod, my heart racing. Our closeness deepened, not with declarations or decisions, but with a quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted. The tension lingered, and Diana placed her hand on my knee. We sat like that for a moment, no words, just the warmth of the water and the uncertainty between us. I purposefully shifted, trying to make sense of the moment. The water clung to my skin as I adjusted, breathing deep, unsure of whether to step away or lean in. The night air was cool against my face, the heat of the hot tub contrasting sharply. We stood quietly in the steam, the moment dense with emotional tension. No one rushed to speak. Aubrey and Tessa remained nearby, and their quiet glances told me they understood this wasn't just casual company anymore. It was charged with something deeper. The night blurred into one long sequence of emotion, laughter, and closeness, hard to define, harder to forget. What followed wasn't something I could put into words easily. It was a blur of sensations and moments, not rooted in touch, but in emotion and overwhelming energy. The evening unfolded into something none of us anticipated, layered with intimacy and discovery. We laughed, we floated in thought, and then, without a clear endpoint, the moment passed. Aubrey, Diana, and Tessa quietly rose from the water, wrapping themselves in towels, soft giggles trailing behind them as they disappeared inside. Diana was the last to leave, pausing for a moment and giving me one last look over her shoulder, her eyes shimmering. "Miles," she said softly. Then she vanished into the house. I remained in the hot tub for a little longer, allowing the warm water to soothe me. My heart was still racing, but I knew everything had come to an end. The night had been unexpectedly intense and unforgettable. As I leaned back and closed my eyes, I couldn't help but smile to myself. Things would never be the same after tonight, and I found myself both nervous and excited about what the future might hold. Little did I know this was only the beginning of a summer that would change everything. The next morning, I awoke with a slight headache and a flood of memories from the night before. For a moment, I wondered if it had all been a dream. The hot tub, Diana, Aubrey, and Tessa, it seemed too surreal. But as I became more alert, I knew it had been real. Very real. The house was quiet, As I made my way downstairs, I half expected to find Diana in the kitchen, but it was empty. A note on the counter caught my eye. Out for brunch with the girls. Be back later. I breathed a sigh of relief. I wasn't quite ready to face Diana yet. I needed time to process everything that had happened. As I sipped my coffee, my mind wandered back to the events of last night. The way Diana had looked at me. The feeling of Aubrey's glance. Tessa's soft voice. It was all so vivid. But now, in the harsh light of day, I felt a twinge of guilt. Diana was my stepmother, after all, and Aubrey and Tessa were her friends. What had I gotten myself into? The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. Diana walked in looking fresh and relaxed. When she saw me, she smiled, but there was something else in her eyes, nervousness, excitement. Morning, she said casually. Sleep well? I nodded, not trusting our usual routine with no mention of that night. But there was an undercurrent of tension now, a charged energy that hadn't been there before. Can we speak? She asked one afternoon. I nodded, closing my laptop as she came in and sat on the edge of my bed. She was wearing a silky robe, and I couldn't help but remember how she looked that night in the hot tub. I've been thinking about that night, she said, her voice low, and I was wondering if maybe you'd like to talk more. Just the two of us this time. My heart started racing. What do you mean? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Diana moved closer, her hand resting gently on my knee. If you're comfortable with it, just us. I knew I should say no, but the memory of her eyes, the look of understanding, it was too much to bear. Okay, I heard myself say, let's see where it goes. We stayed up that night, holding each other in a silence that spoke louder than words. It wasn't just physical. We talked about the past, about the future, about fear, about hope. Over the next few weeks, Diana and I settled into a new routine. We maintained our normal roles during the day, but at night, behind closed doors, we shared a connection that defied definition. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, personal, intimate. One night, as we lay on the couch, Diana propped herself up on an elbow and looked at me. I need to ask you something, Miles. I responded with curiosity, noticing the hesitant tone in her voice. How would you feel about including others? I blinked, surprised. Like Aubrey and Tessa? Diana nodded. They've been asking about you. I took a moment to consider. We don't have to, she said quickly. I'm fine with just us, but variety can be enjoyable at times. I pulled her close, kissing her softly. You're always my number one, I whispered. The next weekend, Aubrey and Tessa came over again. Diana called it a private party. This time, the nervous energy from that first night was gone, replaced by something warmer, more comfortable. The evening unfolded into something none of us anticipated, layered with intimacy and discovery. The weeks turned into months. Diana and I remained the core of the connection, growing stronger with each passing day. Aubrey and Tessa joined occasionally, bringing excitement, but never replacing the bond between us. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of jealousy, of fear. What if someone found out? What if the feelings changed? But we talked openly, honestly. One memorable night after Aubrey and Tessa had left, Diana and I were curled up on the couch. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart skipped a beat. I think I'm falling in love with you. Relief flooded me. Diana, I said, cupping her face. I think I've been in love with you for a while now. We stayed close that night, speaking of the future. We knew people wouldn't understand, but we were determined to make it work. As summer gave way to fall, we settled into a new normal. In the eyes of the outside world, we were still stepmother and stepson. But in private, we shared a connection we never expected. One crisp autumn evening, we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. You know, Diana said with a smile, I never imagined that night in the hot tub would lead to all of this. I laughed, pulling her close. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on the journey. It had been a whirlwind of discovery, connection, and love. I didn't know what the future held, but as I held Diana in my arms, I knew one thing. Whatever came our way, we'd face it together.